Hello. Abhinav sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, we are live now.
Okay, great. Can we wait for just 2 minutes so that everyone else can join?
Yes, yes. No problem.
Yeah. Yes, I think we can begin now.
Yes, sir. Garvita, over to you. Garvita. Hello.
I think there's a problem with her audio.
Yes, yes. Okay, sir, I'll start.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Good evening, future CAs. We welcome you to this webinar. Let me welcome Sir Abhinav Sharma Sir. He is one of the youngest CA in India, first Aurangabadkar to start all India Test Series platform. He was a city topper of Aurangabad City in CA finals. He was a merit holder throughout his school life and college life. He started teaching at the age of 17. He has written articles on taxation subject which are published in Taxman. Biggest hit was between cricket and TDS provisions and had over 32,000 plus views. He is a state level cricket player. He won the Best Paper Presenter Award in National Conference for CA students in 2017. He was also associated with Vikasa as a past treasurer in 1718. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Sorry, Yash, I'm so sorry.
Sir, over to you now.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, a very good evening to all the students and the future chartered accountants who have joined us. A very, very happy and a prosperous Holi to all of you. Just let me know in the comment section whether you all have joined and all are actively present here. Okay, so before we begin, I'll just have a few lines to share with you. We have students from South India also who will be viewing this webinar, and I have been constantly receiving some suggestions from the South India students in my YouTube videos that please record the lectures in English audio or at least add the subtitles. So for the benefit of the South Indian students, we'll have this webinar completely in English. So it is the benefit of the whole. Okay, so I'll just share my screen so that we can begin the webinar. Let me know if you are able to see my screen. Okay, great. So firstly, a big thank you to Aurangabad Vikasa for taking up this webinar, and this will be quite a lot help for the result a few days back. They need to get up and get back into the business as soon as they can because the time here is very, very limited. So we will begin the seminar, which is a master strategy for the last 50 days and to avoid the most common mistakes which are made by the students. So the reason for the webinar, which me and Vikas Aurangabad had done, is because students have been complaining because they have not been able to plan their studies properly, due to which they were losing hopes for clearing the exams. And also they were continuously watching motivational videos, continuously making other schedules, but they were unclear as to how to go about it, how to execute that plan. So that is the reason for this webinar, and I hope that this webinar would be quite a lot helpful for you, which will increase your marks. So a quick review on what will be covered. So we have the master plan to conquer the May 21 attempt, then how to study in this last 50 days, avoid the most common mistakes that every CA students make, and the common queries which are generally asked by every CA students, which I have been also receiving. So this all will be covered in today's session. So the strategy during the last 50 days, the current date which we have here is the 28th of March, and the exam date that you all are having, that is right now, is 21st or 22nd. So 21st and 22nd are the dates for those students who will be giving their first group or the both group, and 30th or 31st would be the exams for those who will be giving the second group for inter and final students. So if we have a look, then the days left in these exams are 53, 62. 53 days are those 53 days for those who will be giving their first group or will be giving the both group exams, and 62 days for those who will be giving the second group. So I have divided this discussion in two parts. The first will be for those who will be giving a single group. Single group will mean the first group and the second group both, and second will be students who will be giving the both group. So first we would be starting with those students who are giving their first group. They are having 53 days in hand and they have 4 subjects to deal. So if we just divide it mathematically, just the number of days and the subjects that we have, So one subject will get 13 days. That's just an average. So 53 days, 4 subjects. So you have 13 days, one subject. So how you can divide those 53 days? So I have made a plan which if you give 7 days, one subject, if you concentrate here, we have 7 days for one subject. You will occupy 28 days for your first revision. Right now, 7 days are more than enough for you to cover the entire thing of the entire subject, because you have been studying in the past as well. It is not that you are taking up the books right now. 7 days are more than enough to complete one subject. So 28 days you can allot to one subject, due to which you will be able to cover the entire thing, and your first revision should be done in these 28 days. The next phase that will start is in the 12 days. You will have 3 days per subject. Yes, can you just mute everyone? I think there's some noise behind.
Yes, sir. Sir, you can continue.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Yash. So the next phase would be divided into 12 days, in which you will have 3 days for one subject. And 3 days for one subject, that will mean you have 12 days for revising the entire thing. In these 12 days, you would be revising the entire syllabus. And 3 days are more than enough because you have already done revisions. And since you have done the first revision in 7 days, so it is quite possible that you need only 3 days to cover the entire 100% syllabus. And then in the last phase that we have is when you have 13 days left. So these 13 days have been derived by this. You have 53 days right now, minus the 28 days of first revision and minus the 12 days of second revision. So that brings us to 13 days which are left with you during the exams. And in these 13 days, what you need to do is you just need to give 2 days for one subject as per ICAI pattern. Now concentrate here, because ICAI pattern here means you need to study as per the institute pattern in which they conduct the exams. The reason that we have so much focused on the ICAI pattern is because in those exam period, we have only 1.5 days to cover the entire syllabus. So it is imperative for us just to know that we can complete the subject in 1.5 days before we go into the actual phase. Because if you don't know, if you are not sure about how you should go about these subjects in the last 1.5 days, you would end up skipping some part of the subject, and then you might go in some sort of depression that, oh, now what do I do, because tomorrow is my exam and I'm not able to cover the 100%. So that is why the reason I'm saying you should study with ICAI pattern is because again, I think there's back.
Everybody,
Okay.
please mute themselves.
Okay. So again, coming on the ICAI pattern, why am I so focused on this ICAI pattern is because you need to be sure that in those 1.5 days, you are able to cover the entire syllabus. You need to know whether you are able to complete all the syllabus in 1.5 days, which are those chapters that you are lacking behind, which are those chapters that you are facing some difficulty in those 1.5 days only. Because if you are entirely going into that phase without even taking a practice of 1.5 days, you will end up losing some of the chapters. So that is why studying as per ICAI pattern in these 2 days is very much crucial. So if we divide 2 days into 4 subjects, so we have 8 days right here. 2 days into 4, that gives us 8 days. And if we subtract 13 days from 8, so we have the last 5 days, and that I have allotted it for the final exam, because the first paper that you would be giving requires more number of days. So that is why the last 5 days that you will be having with you, you will give it to the first paper, and that would be your third revision. I hope everyone is clear with this. So going on to the next second group. all the students who are giving the second group exam, they are having 62 days right now, and they have 4 subjects. So one subject gets 15 days on an average basis. So the calculation in for second group students also is quite similar. You have 36 days, that is 9 days per subject. You have your first revision in that. The next second revision is the same as the first group because you have 3 days for one subject, that gives 12 days. Then the third revision that you will be doing is you have 14 days left after you doing your first revision and the second revision. So you have 2 days as per ICI pattern, and the next 6 days, remaining 6 days, you can give it to the first subject, first paper that you will be having as per the actual exam. So now coming on to the both group students who will be giving their both group, they have 53 days and they have 4 more subjects to deal with. So the number of days that they have per subject is comparatively a little less than all the other students. So if one subject gets 6.5 days, so the calculation goes as follows. We have 32 days for one subject. You can give 4 days for one subject. Now you might think that these 4 days are a little less as compared to the other first group and second group students because you are giving 8 subjects. So 4 days a little less. Yes, I agree to that. But you are not starting from day one right now. You have been doing studies earlier also. You have been studying in the Feb month. You have been studying in the March month. So after studying for Feb and the March month, 4 days is not a big deal for the first revision. Then after completing your 32 days, that is giving 4 days for each subject, you have 21 days left with you. And after the 22 days, you can give 2 days for one subject as per ICI pattern, which I already discussed. Then after giving 2 days for one subject, so 16 days are already exhausted. And then you are left with the last 5 days, which you can give it for the first paper. So this is how I kept it very short and simple of how you can divide your number of days into number of subjects and how you can be able to complete the entire syllabus in time with 3 revisions. So now coming to the most important part, that is the common mistakes which are made by the students. You would be wondering, how did I get the common mistakes made by the students? Did I do some R&D, or did my team ask the students? Did we ask for their papers, or how did we get to know what are the common mistakes made by the students? The answer is very simple. It is the institute who has given this data to us that there are some common mistakes which are made by the students. Now, how do you get this data? The institute always gives a summary of examiner comments, which sadly we never see. If you can see my screen, I have gone to the institute's website, and if I click on the final course, we have the subjects allotted here, and in the second last item that we have, it is the summary of examiner comments. In this summary of examiner comments, institute examiner paper checkers already point out the mistakes that you have been doing. So by this, we get to know what are the common mistakes which are made by the students. Coming on to the presentation, the first subject that we'll be taking is FR for final and accounts for enter. So the first point, the common mistakes that everyone make is the schedule 3 format. The student does not follow schedule 3 format. Why am I so much focused on schedule 3? Is because it is a statutory requirement by the company law. And once it is a statutory requirement, it has to go the same way as it has been mentioned. Now, I'll just show you where the institute examiners have written that the students need to go as per the schedule 3 format. Now, I have the examiner's comment on performance of examinees. The paper 1 is financial reporting. The first comment that you will be able to see is some erred in the preparation of statement of changes in equity. That is a part of schedule 3. Question number 2A, not able to give correctly notes to accounts as regard to share capital and other equity. Next question, they presented their answers either without headings or with mixed disclosure information rather than disclosing it categorically. So this is how we get to know the common mistakes that are made. Even institute is saying to you that you have been incorrectly answering the schedule 3 format. So you need to be sure that the schedule 3 format which has been given, you need to make it exactly in the same manner as it has been mentioned before. And it is there in the institute comment as well. The same comments are also there in the inter accounts paper, which they have said that the balance sheet of companies are not being made as per schedule 3 format. The next point which I am saying is the short forms that everyone have written. I have been checking many papers, and my team also checks many papers, and in that we have found that the students does not leave the full explanation or the full forms of the schedule 3. Instead of reserves and surplus, the students will write only RS. This is what we find: reserve and surplus. They write in shortcuts. This is a crime which you do in FR and in accounts as well. You need to be sure that you are writing the full forms of all the account heads that we are dealing with. If you write short forms, the institute will definitely cut your marks. So this is the second common mistake that students do. And the third mistake is the students do not write AS or Ind AS. Now, in accounts, the first question that comes is generally of accounting standards. In final level, the questions are a little bit mixed. They are on Ind AS. Every question is on Ind AS, but it is not that the first question will be on AS and the other questions are from different chapters. So what student does is the student write the entire answer properly, but does not mention that this question is from this AS or this Ind AS. So this is the most common mistake that every student make. The examiner have been given instructions by the institute that you need to write everything in, you need to mention the AS or the Ind AS on which the question has been asked. There are marks for that. If you don't write the Ind AS or the AS in the question, you would be losing marks, even if your answer is completely correct. The next subject is SFM, or for finance and economics for CA Inter. And the common mistake that has been made in SFM paper is that the theory has not been written well. I'll show you where in the examiner comments the institute have written this. Okay, so if you're able to see my screen, strategic financial management, question number 1, C. The overall performance was found good. Some showed a general understanding of the topic. Then question number 2A, some of them lacked in proper presentation of their answers. Then again, the C part, some examinee wrote vaguely and wrote generically on view of financial risk. Then question number 5C, again, however, lack of presentation skill was visible among the examinees. So if you observe closely, there is a trend which is going on, which says every C part of the question has been written that there was a general understanding and the students did not write well. So you would know that in SFM paper, every C part of the question is a theory question which has been asked in CA final level. The same is being repeated. The same comment is there in the CA Inter as well. So the institute is asking you that you please prepare for the theory topics as well. You just cannot prepare for practical topics and go in the exams. Every C part of the question, it has been mentioned that there is a lack of proper presentation and general answers have been written. So this is what the common mistakes that the students are making in SFM paper. The third subject would be audit, EISSM. The most common mistake is the students write general answer, and at some point of time the student does not even understand what the question has been asked. The second is the third one is written the same answer but in different format. So this is what we do when we don't understand what we should write. Okay, so I'll just take you through the examiner comments. Okay, so this is the comments on advanced auditing. Okay, you can see here I've highlighted this part. Gave general answers. Some examinees gave general answers of SA 250. Some examinees have written general answers. Few examinees discussed general points. Majority of the examinees have listed out points, but justification not explained. Again, general answers. This was for final. I'll show you what has been written for CA Inter. You'll find it very hilarious. Okay, so this is the Inter examiner comments. If you see here, many students wrote a general essay on computer. So if you just write a general essay, how can you expect the institute to give you marks in audit? And the next comment, I found it very hilarious. Some of them reproduce the answer which was answered in question number 1D. So they just copy pasted the same content, but in some different format and some different question. Don't do that. Institute paper checkers are chartered accountants. They would know what things that you are doing. How can it go wrong? So please do not do that. For audit, especially, it is a pain point for all the students which are there and attending the webinar, including myself. I had a big problem in solving audit. So what I used to do is I'll just share you my experience. What did I do so that it would be helpful for you in retaining the points which are shared in audit. So what I used to do is I used to record small audio clips of each and every part of the audit, which I had a difficulty in retaining. I didn't record the entire answer. I just recorded the heading in my phone. I just recorded the main points and I used to listen that every now and then when I used to take break. So what that made is it was a constant hammering in my head that I have some points to discuss. I have some points to remember. And this is how I was able to retain almost 90% of the content that was earlier difficult for me to retain. But after listening to the audio clips, it was a constant hammering in my head, as I previously said. So that is why I was able to remember the audit points and I was able to write the entire points. I'm not saying the matter is used, you should do in the audio. It is only the main points which is required to get into that audio and just listen to that while you have a break. So you can apply this trick. It worked for me. I'm sure it will work for you as well. And you can text me if this trick work for you. And the same goes for EIS and SM. I won't show it in the examiner's comment. If you have some time after this webinar, you can go and see it. But all the comments on EIS SM, it is the same as audit, that they have been written general answers. Coming to the next subject, law. The most common comments are the same as audit, general terms, unclear as to how to write the answers. And a special comment for CA Inter students is that in other laws, institute have written that you have not been writing the other laws part very well. I'll just come on to that. Okay, so this is CA Inter exam in the comments. Question number 1D. The performance, oh sorry, this is not the one. This one. But were unable to explain the provisions of negotiable instruments in support of their answers. Then again, this was below average. Again, this was from other laws. And the same part continues for each and every question. So the CA Inter student, what you need to do is, institute is constantly saying you that you need to focus on the other laws as well. Just don't blindly go on company law. Focus on other law as well. And because it is being asked in every question last bit is of other law. So don't ever risk that place. You might end up losing your marks. For CA final, the comments are as similar as the audit part, so I won't be repeating that again. It is the same as the students have written some general answers on law, and the language that it is needed is not there. Next part is again a pain in the ass for all the CA final students, that is costing. So before saying anything, I'll just show you what are the examiner comments on costing. Okay, so this is the examiner comments for the subject of costing, which is there for CA final. Even inter students, this is also helpful for you because these are also mentioned in the inter examiner comments as well. I'll just read out the para because what I had to say is completely written here. It is evident that majority of the examinees did not prepare extensively and failed to understand the questions requirements. First thing, the examinees must understand that there is no shortcut to success. They must study more intensively and practice to solve problems from the study material, revision test paper, and past year question papers, and prepare silent points on each chapter for revision. Institute is already saying you where you should prepare and how much questions that you need to solve. Without reference to theories, examinees can end up basing their answers on general knowledge and do not provide convincing explanations. When costing came in new syllabus, the most problematic part of costing which students faced was the theory part which was added in costing. And this is what have been written by the institute. Without reference to theory, examinees can end up basing their answers on general knowledge. And this is what students have been doing all along. The students have been writing some general points which do not match the expectations of the institute. The new syllabus costing has been designed in such manner that you need to think as a CEO or CFO of your company. The institute expects you from that vision. So that is why you need to focus more on the theory part as well. I'm not saying that you need to mug up all the points, but what you need to do is you need to apply some analytical mind as well. So you need to remember only the key points, because costing is a practical subject. It is still a practical subject. You just need to comment on the answer that you have got in costing, and that is what institute have written. You need to apply some analytical mind. So this is what the examiner comments on costing says. Even in the inter part, the same things are repeated. That is, the theory part has not been written well by the examinees. I'll just show you the examiner comments on inter costing. Question number 6. We all know that the costing paper is the theory part, and since it is an option, students tend to keep that an option as well. So question number 6, this was a theoretical question, and most of the candidates fail to understand the requirement of the question. This is on the first question, theoretical question. This is again theoretical question, average performance. Again, performance of the examinees was average in this question. This was a theoretical question. A few number of students answered it well. Again, theoretical question on opportunity cost. Performance of the examinees was not satisfactory in this question. And institute have also added an overall performance on this question was not up to the mark. So for both inter and final students, you need to focus on theory as well. Theory is not an option in costing. You might end up losing marks. If you just think that you will be able to do practical things and you will be going exam and you will keep theory in option, you will be getting reduced results. You won't be able to score an exemption in costing, even if you have written everything perfectly in the practical part. The next that we will be doing is taxation. The common mistake that many students make is the working notes that we make while writing the questions in income tax and in indirect tax as well, the working notes are missing. These are the marks based on steps that you write in the answer. In the institute suggested answer, which the model answer that institute provides to the exam, to the paper checkers, it has been seen that there are marks based on the steps that you write, only on the amount that you derive. Suppose, giving you an example, if there is income from PGBP and you write an amount there, you have half mark for that. Income from house property, this much amount, you have half mark for that. But there are 1 mark, total 1 mark for writing one single note in the answer that this amount has been derived by using this provision. There is 1 full mark for that. If you skip those part, if you skip the working notes, you would be end up losing 1 mark. If there are, suppose, 5 working notes that are required, you will be losing 5 marks out of, suppose the question is of 10 or 12 marks, you would be losing 5 marks just because you have not written the working note. Students tend to be lazy and this writing working note, they don't write the provision and they don't even write the explanation of why they have used this provision and how the amount came. So this is some pointers for taxation. I'll give you a suggestion of how you can improve in direct tax and indirect tax. In the direct tax paper, what you can do is you need to focus more on the number of questions that you are solving. In income tax paper or in the direct tax paper, you won't be receiving any general comments or any direct question in the examination. It would be a complete case study. If you are required to calculate the total income of the assessee, that are the main questions that are asked for 14 marks, for 20 marks. These are the type of questions that are asked. So you need to practice more and more questions. You need to practice more and more case studies, because institute is preparing you that if a client comes to you and he says that these are the entire things in what I have done in this year, you need to calculate a total income and you need to apply capital gains, you need to apply PGBP, you need to apply house property as well, set off and carry forward of losses, advance tax, deductions, everything in one single question. So the more and more questions that you will solve, the more and more confidence you will be getting in calculating the total income and calculating the tax which needs to be paid by the taxpayer. In indirect tax, it is a reverse story. You need to practice more and more provisions, because GST is still a new law. There are still many cases that are happening. There are still no appeals and no case laws that you are required to study right now. But for the final students who have been doing their offices and articleship, they would know that GST audit has just ended for 3 years, 17, 18, 18, 19 and 19, 20. The institute already has 1 million case laws on GST and on their provisions. So they already have complex questions which they might ask you in the coming exams. So that is why it is very necessary for you to remember the provisions and its applicability rather than asking more and more questions. If you have studied, thoroughly gone through the revision test papers which institute have given for the GST questions from November 18 onwards, you would agree with me that there are some complex questions which are asked in the revision test papers. Those are very good quality questions. They might come in exam. Institute can ask them anytime because they have such case studies from the GST audit. So these were some common mistakes that are made by students and you can avoid. I would again request every one of you to go on institute website. I have shown you where the examiner comments are. Study those entirely thoroughly. You would be getting more and more knowledge of what you should do and how you should overcome the common mistakes. Now, the common queries that I receive most of the time by the students, those are which material we should use for preparing the exams. The most common answer that I give is the institute study material. It is as simple as that. I don't understand why the students do not use institute study material. You are giving an exam which is set by ICAI and you don't even refer the modules which are given by ICAI. What's the logic in that? Yes, I'm not saying that you don't refer to your faculty's notes or any other books which is provided by your faculty. Yes, that is also important, but you need to also study the study material as well. You need to understand what is given in the study material, what are the extra points which are there in the study material, what are the extra questions which are there in study material. 60% of the questions that are asked in ICA exams are from the materials which is already being issued by ICA. So I don't know, still many people ask which material to use. I am tired of answering this question again and again, that you need to study institute material at least twice. You need to go through it again and again and again. 60% questions are the same. So why are you risking those 60% of the questions? The second is, how many revisions are enough? According to me, if you want to clear the ICA exams, whether single group or both group, you need minimum 3 revisions. Minimum 3 revisions. And in this webinar, I have made it very clear. Even if you start right now, you would be able to do 3 revisions. Now, I know many of the students have been revising or have been studying before this webinar as well. So you are already ahead. You can do 3, 4, 5 revisions. You can go up till 4 revisions. It is possible. I have shown you 3 revisions. Even if you start now, you have started long back. I know that you're not opening the book for the first time. So minimum 3 revisions are definitely needed if you want to clear the ICA exams. How many subjects you should study in a day? I have been receiving quite a few queries on this question as well. According to me, it totally depends upon how many subjects you are comfortable in doing a day. If your friend is doing 2 subjects, if your another friend is doing 3 subjects, doesn't mean you have to do 2 or 3 subjects in a day. I personally used to study one subject for entire 15 days until and unless I completed it thoroughly. During my first revision that I used to do in CA final and in CA inter as well, I used to study only one subject the whole day for 5-6 days, unless and until the subject is entirely finished, because that was what was comfortable for me. So what is comfortable for you, you better know that. You are your best judge. Do not rely on what the others say. You know how many subjects you can do it in a day, how much subjects you can take it. So entirely depends upon you how many subjects you want to do it in a day, how many hours to study in a day. So rather than telling one entire just a number, you need to study 14 or 15, I'll just tell you a very, very simple calculation which I used to make, and I tell it to my students. We have, if you can see my screen, we have 24 hours in a day. We sleep for 7 hours. I'll just reduce it. Sleep 7 hours. So, and then for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, everything, you don't need more than 2 hours in a day. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, not more than 2 hours. Then again, you need at least I think 2 hours more for just taking breaks in between during the entire day. So all this calculation that I have done, it brings to 7 plus 2 9, 9 plus 2 11 hours. These are the number of hours that you require in a day, and these are the hours in which you cannot study. Yes, you can reduce those hours. You can reduce your break time. You can take that 2 hours to 1.5 or 1 hour, or maybe even half an hour. You can even reduce your sleep. Instead of 7 hours, you can sleep for 6 hours, maybe 5 hours. Some people even sleep for 4 hours. But I have taken it on an average basis, and a person sleeps for 7 hours a day. So even if you do that, you have 11 hours in which you cannot study. So if we reduce 24 hours from these 11 hours, you still have 13 hours to study the entire day. Now this calculation has to be done by each one of you. You have to self-introspect. How many hours of study are you doing? You have an average person has to study 13 hours a day. It is quite normal that a person can study up to 13 hours a day. I just showed you a very simple calculation. 7 hours of sleep, 2 hours of breakfast, lunch or dinner, and 2 hours of break during the entire day. That's it. You don't require anything else during the day. It is just and just studies. So this is how you need to calculate your number of hours of study. You don't calculate it just by doing, I studied 3 hours of FR, I studied 3 hours of accounts, I studied 3 hours of costing. You just reduce the time which you did not study. The balancing figure has to be the number of hours that you can study. So the minimum hours that you can study is 30. You can anytime extend it, but do not lower it. The next common query that I receive is whether I should study early morning or study late at night. Again, completely depending upon you on how you're comfortable with. I used to study late night because I was comfortable in doing late night studies. I used to study till 3:45 or 4 p.m. Sorry, 4 a.m. at night. And then I used to wake up at 9:30 in the morning. Completely depends upon you how you are comfortable with. You are the best judge of yourself again. And you need to know whether you can study early morning or study late at night. Don't just go on what other people are saying. Your friend is saying, no, you study early in the morning. It is nice that you wake up early and study. Don't listen to anything. If you are comfortable in doing it early morning, just do it. If you are doing it late at night and you are comfortable, you know that my study is happening late at night, you study late at night. There is no thumb rule that you need to wake up early or you need to sleep late. So I think these were the common queries that I could identify, but still I think there might be some more queries. So this is the end of the presentation, and Aurangad Vikasa and myself, I wish you very good luck in your exams. I think we can begin the question and answer round. Okay, so the first query that is being asked is from Ayush Mahajan. Can we get this slide, sir? Yes, I think you can get this slide. You can just text your email ID or WhatsApp number. Aurangad Vikasa or me, one of them will give you the slide. Okay, so I don't think that there are many queries right now. Was the session so good or it was so boring that you don't have any queries? So I'll just type my WhatsApp number here. If you need any query, you can anytime ask me the queries. I'll just, whenever I get my time, I'll just revert you with that. So Garima, if there is any more queries, then we can have those, or else we can end the session.
Sure, sir. Any more queries? You can put in the YouTube comment box or on the Zoom chat.
Sir, there is one query that from which year's RTP question papers we should start, something like that. Sir,
okay. Okay. So if you are planning to study from RTP questions, Can I know which course you are from, final or inter?
No
Okay.
reply, sir.
Okay. So right now, in this May 21 attempt, Institute have updated their study material with some new questions. Those questions are not new questions which are added. Those questions are already which were part of the revision test papers or the study material. Those Institute have already included. So if you want to study which year RTP, so you need to focus from right from May 18 onwards, from the first RTP. You just cannot rely on any 1 year RTP. You need to be updated with each and every year's RTP starting from May 18 onwards.
Sir, any tips for practical exams like costing and tax? One more question.
Okay. For practical exams for taxation, I think I already offered you one suggestion, which was practice more and more questions. For costing also, one thing which was the common mistake that everyone make is the theory questions that they do is a little less expectation of the I framed it incorrectly. The theory questions that you do, the theory answers which are being written are not as per ICA expectation. So in costing, you need to prepare for the theory questions as well. For the practical thing, you need to make your concept very clear. You need to practice more and more questions. You can do it from study material. You can do it from revision test papers. You can even refer. And if you have covered everything, you can cover the old practice manual as well, if time permits.
Sir, one more question. If we appear for both group, will the institute be strict on correction or anything like that?
Okay, so I think I'm not the capable person to answer that. If you need the answer, you can anyway write to the president or the chairman of board of studies of how the checking can be.
Okay.
There's one more question about how to answer true or false question in auditing of CA Inter.
Okay, so if you are answering a true or false question in CA Inter, first of all, you need to mention whether the first line should be whether it's true or whether it's false. You just cannot write a story on that. And the main important thing, which is also mentioned in the examiner comments as well, which I did not show because I think it was not that important. But since this query has come, there is also an examiner comment which states that in true or false question in Inter, the students did not write the correct conclusion as to why they have written true or why they have written false. For studying true and false question, you cannot just practice questions. You need to be thorough with the study material because you don't know from where the true or false question might come. So there are many question banks which have been circulated that this is the question bank for true or false question, but you need to study those as well. But you need to be well versed with the study material as well, because institute can ask a question from any nook and corner.
Sir, one more question from CA Intermediate. For law subject, is ICI material enough or we need another some more question banks or any other material?
More than enough. Institute material for CA Inter is more than enough.
Okay. Sir, some tips on management in exam, during exam, writing exam, management of time during that 3 hours.
Okay, that is a very good question. So if you are attempting a subject in which that is 100% theory practical subject in paper like accounts or finance, in which there are no MCQ questions, so basically you need those 15 minutes which you have before reading the paper. That is more important than anything else. You need to know which questions you will be writing first, because if you are not sure which question you will be writing first, you would have to read the question again and again after the writing time has begun, and you would waste your time in that. So those 15 minutes are very, very crucial. You need to identify which question you will be attempting first. Always attempt those questions which are relatively easy and relatively smaller. Some people make a mistake in accounts. I'm particularly talking about. they attempt question on consolidated financial statements or the balance sheet part, which is a 20-mark question. Those might look easy, but it takes a lot of time. Plus, another mistake that student does, and during those 3 hours, is if the balance sheet doesn't match, the student is frustrated that how come my balance sheet doesn't match? I need to make this balance sheet because I might lose some marks. I'll tell you my own example. When I was writing my FR paper, my balance sheet did not tally in the consolidated financial statement. It was the second question which I attempted. I thought that it was a little easy question. I would do it very easily, but my balance sheet did not match. But I had this one thing clear in my mind, that there are stepwise marking for those questions. So I just checked the question once. Still, my balance sheet did not tally. I just wrote a balancing figure in the PPE part and just left the question as it is. And after leaving that question, I was able to attempt 90 marks paper, and then I scored 68 out of it. So in those questions, in some questions that you are stuck, you just leave that alone. Do not waste time in thinking what has to be done or what has to be written. You leave some pages, you leave 1 or 2 pages in between. Doesn't matter. The institute will not deduct your marks if you leave 2 pages in between, or the examiner won't correct your paper strictly because you have left some pages in between. That will not happen. So if you're stuck in any question, just leave that as it is. Focus on the new question. It might also happen that you write all the entire paper, and then you might also remember what are the answer which you had to write, and then you might be able to do that.
Sir, one more question related to practical subjects. Is it necessary to write the working notes in the start or at the end? Can we write them in the middle of the solution?
I'm not sure whether you can write it in the middle of the question. It is always advisable that you write it in first, or whether you write at the last. It is more appropriate that you write it in the last. First, you show the main calculation and then you show the working note. That is a more appropriate presentation. But I don't advise that you write it in the middle.
Okay. Sir, some tips on paper presentation.
Okay. So this is paper presentation. For which subject are we exactly talking about?
Sir, both practical as well as theory.
For theory questions, you need to underline the matter very well, because the institute examiners have more than 50 papers to check in a single day. So you can imagine how much time the institute examiner has to give for one paper. He cannot read your entire paragraph. In theory papers I'm talking about. So it is more and more important that you underline the main parts or the keywords that we have in the exam. So we draw the attention of the examiner directly to the keywords. The examiner is searching only the keywords. He will not read your entire paragraph. So that is why, so this is how you can improve your presentation in the theory part. You need to underline all the important parts so that the attention of the examiner is directly drawn to the keywords. And if he finds 80% of the keywords which you have underlined, he might also neglect some of the mistakes that you have made or some point that you have missed. And in practical subjects, some of the queries that come up in SFM paper or the finance paper is, do we need to apply only the formula which has been given in the institute, or the institute way of solving is a little different, and the faculty that teaches you is a little different. It doesn't matter your presentation. In practical subject, what matters is your final answer. If your final answer matches with the institute suggested answer, you get full marks. Even if you skip a step, doesn't matter, you will get full marks for that.
Sir, for MCQs, we shall solve the MCQs first, or solve the main paper first?
Okay, so for MCQ part, what I did, I'll share it with you. My logic for solving MCQ is that when I had the paper in my hand, when I gave my final exams, I studied the theoretical questions first in those 15 minutes, and I identified which questions to solve first. So from 2 p.m. to 3:30, 3:45, I solved the entire theory paper. and then I moved on to MCQ, and I finished the MCQ questions in 30 minutes, because you don't require more than 30 to 40 minutes to solve the entire MCQ paper, right? So the logic behind this was, we have to continuously write in those 3 hours, and you have to write rigorously and with a good handwriting as well. You just cannot write anything that the examiner cannot understand. So the logic behind this is, you write and write and write, and when on 3:30 or at 3:45, you need to give some break to your hands as well, because it has been writing constantly. So that is why I used to do MCQs in between, so that I give a proper rest to my hand for those half an hour. And then in the last 45 minutes or 50 minutes, the speed has to be rigorous, because if some question you might miss because you have lack of time, so the speed of the hand should be more, and that is why you should give a proper rest to your hand in those half an hour. But this is what I feel, what I did, and it worked for me. But you can try it as well, because this is what mock tests are for. You can try different methods during the mock test before giving the final exam. You can try it MCQ first, MCQ last, or MCQ in the between. But I would suggest you would do MCQ in the between, so that you give a proper rest to your hand for going full throttle in the last few minutes.
Sir, one more question related to audit. In the correct and incorrect questions, if the statement is incorrect, so we need to only correct the statement or give a proper explanation while correcting the statement?
You just need to mention that the statement is incorrect and the explanation why it is incorrect. That's it.
Okay. Sir, institute RTPs and MTPs are enough, or we should go for private coaching or test series?
For the preparation time, right?
Yes, for preparation.
Okay, so actually it depends upon you. Actually, since this is a branch platform, we cannot promote private classes. So if you solve the institute material, you have RTPs, you have MTPs, but it is always advisable that you give at least one mock test of one full syllabus, because you will get to know whether you are able to complete all the chapters, and in those 100 marks paper, in those 3 hours, how you are able to tackle the entire 100 marks paper. So it is advisable that you should give a mock test. It doesn't matter if you need to go for a private test series or also the institute mock test. It totally depends upon you.
Sir, can we refer to the questions before 2018 of the old syllabus for both CA, Inter and Final?
It is not advisable. You should refer the old study material, because it will just add more burden. The institute material, which is already been issued, it is more than enough. It has more number of questions. It has sufficient amount of questions as well. So if only and only if you have more and more time, you are left with more and more time, then only go for the old practice manuals.
Any more questions? Feel free to ask. Sir, I think we can conclude.
Okay, no problem.
Sir, how to tackle a CA Inter tax paper? One question.
Okay, so CA Inter tax paper, I think I already mentioned in the webinar itself. In the direct tax paper, you need to answer more and more questions. Reason being, you need to be more and more confident, because the institute will ask a directly case study question and directly ask you to compute the total income. So you need to be well versed and be confident that you will be able to solve the entire total income question, even if there are multiple provisions that are asked. So, and how you can get those confidence is by solving more and more questions.
That's it, sir.
Okay, so if you have any more questions, I have my number written in the chat box. You can anytime ask the questions, or you can give your questions to Yash and Garvita as well, so they can forward it to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, Garvita, over to you.
Yes. Happiness is starting your study with 3 principles of accounting, and your profession with 3 principles of life. Challenge it, achieve it, and loop it. Hello and good evening, everyone. I, Garvita Kankaria, Secretary of Aurangabad Vikasa, on behalf of Aurangabad branch and Aurangabad Vikasa, raise my vote of thanks for this knowledgeable event. I would like to thank CA Abhinav Sharma Sir for his valuable time and for sharing his master strategy. I'm extremely sorry for the technical issues which were in the start. I would also like to thank the students for listening carefully. Thank you all. All the best for your May 21 attempt. And don't forget, Babu Moshaye, Zindagi lambi honi chahiye, badi nahi. Happy Holi to all.